I shall be telling this with a sigh. Somewhere ages and ages hence, two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all of the difference. There are many secrets and mysteries in this world, strange places and events that call out to us to explore and investigate. These realms of the unknown and the unexplained are waiting for us, just over the horizon and down a dark road. Join your host, Dennis Carroll and Gerald Fountain, as we take the road less traveled.
Hello out there in podcast land, ladies and gentlemen. Here we are again with another episode. Here we meet again on the road less traveled. Welcome aboard tonight. We've got a very interesting subject on hand. We're talking about zombie weather tonight. Yes, there may be a definite forecast of a downpour of zombies here. Looks like it. We're going to get into that deep. And in order to do that, though, we've also got to bring up our good friend and co-host, Mr. Gerald Fountain.
Hello,
Gerald.
How's it going?
All right. Yes, sir. We're talking about forecast of zombie weather tonight, man. It may get foggy zombie wise here, definitely. We're gonna get deep into that tonight. How have you been doing, my friend?
Been doing good.
Great show last night with Jessica. Didn't get to see all of it, but I saw most of it. It was great.
Yeah, it's always fun having Jessica on, and we talked about the blimmies on our show, and I saw you in chat saying that blimmies don't have to worry about being bit in the neck by vampires.
Well, that's the thing about those blimmies. You just can't get ahead with them, Gerald. Nope, no matter what you do. But I've always thought about that. Could some of those things have been some kind of mutation where they didn't have much of a neck and the head was set further down in the body, and they just looked kind of like they were headless. You know what I mean? That's a possibility too. Yeah, you got some mutations like that. And speaking of mutations, we're going to be talking about that tonight because it is somewhat weather related. There's some weird stuff going on in the animal kingdom, folks. Absolutely, we're going to talk about that. Just like there's weird stuff going on with the weather, and some of it is even almost like biblical. I was reading the other day, Gerald, and we did a show on this one time. As a matter of fact, I think back in the past, in the Book of Revelations, it talks about one of the plagues that hits the earth are 100-pound hailstones. Think about that. My gosh.
Yeah.
What that would be like aerial bombardment, would it not? Mm-hmm.
I've seen videos of people recently having softball size hail. That did a lot of damage.
Oh God, yeah. Yeah. Well, if you were out in it would kill you. I guess it would unalive you very quickly, and if you hit you in the head, that would bust your skull open. My gosh.
I think I
Um,
don't think it'd take very big a hail to actually do harm to a human being. I mean, it could be the size of a golf ball or a little less probably and kill you.
yeah, that's just like a bullet. Yeah, very many, very aspects, And I was telling somebody about this the other day. Speaking of bullets, the government is developing smart bullets. Think about that a moment, Gerald.
Yeah.
Smart bullets. These bullets will find you, folks. They shoot the bullet at you, it's not going to stop till they find you. And they are really very small miniature drones, Gerald. And what they will do, they will come in contact with your head. They blow a hole in your head. You are dead. That's it. Uh, think about that.
Yeah.
Smart bullet. Yeah, that's scary. But I think a lot of this stuff that we're definitely going to talk about tonight is government related with the weather because that is definitely, they're good at weaponizing. So we've talked about super soldiers weaponizing cryptids and werewolves and dolphins and dogs and horses have been done that way for centuries.
Yeah.
Part of warfare. Why wouldn't the weather be part of the warfare? Definitely, and that they're not going to pass that up. Absolutely, that's too good of an opportunity to do something with. You know.
Absolutely. Yeah, they've been experimenting with weather for a long time.
Oh yeah. And I remember Patton complaining about trying to get into Sicily back in World War II, and the planes couldn't. They were using planes to bombard their way in, and they couldn't fly the planes because of the weather. That's what Patton was mad. He was on the phone. He says, "Can't you do something about this damn weather?" That was really funny. But you know what? It turns out that probably they can now. Definitely do something about that. Uh, so that would definitely be in part of their weapons and repertoire to use the weather against enemies and use it for their own advantage. But I think a lot of Gerald, the longer I live, the more I realize that man's never going to quit tampering with any of this stuff. He's going to
Right.
keep playing God, Frankenstein, whatever name you want to put on it. He's not going to quit, and unfortunately we're on the other receiving end of that most of the time. That's the way it goes. And well, just like you were talking about the blemishes last night, there's some weird stuff going on in nature. Definitely, we're getting a lot of reports. I mean, of animals that never were cannibalistic are becoming very cannibalistic. They're eating each other. Cats are eating each other. Squirrels
Oh,
are eating each other. What's going on with that? And you know what? Though some of this stuff, and just I'm gonna see what you think about it. But some of this stuff could actually be related to the weather, the manipulation of the weather itself. Who knows? God only knows what kind of chemicals and stuff they're putting in the rain and the fog and the storms and all that. I mean, this would be a perfect way to deliver that, would it not, girl?
absolutely. I mean, we already know that when everybody's experienced this fog or this mist this last year or so, people were getting
Mm-hmm.
sick and they were getting upper respiratory. So everybody's wondering, what's in this mist? What's in this fog that all of a sudden has been showing up where all these outbreaks have been happening?
Absolutely, and another aspect of this is, uh, using the weather, you could very easily incapacitate your enemy. You dump enough rain on him, it washes out roads and everything else. That's a general aspect of warfare right there. And if they're not going to stop tampering with super soldiers, and I believe without a doubt the super soldier exists, I believe the super soldier is ready to come out of the shadows almost. He's going to take his place very soon beside his brother, the drone, in modern warfare. Drones were unheard of, what,
Right.
30, 40 years ago, like that, used in warfare. But, if you go back and look at the annals of history, Gerald, air stuff like that, even was used back in the Civil War. They put up observation balloons, on the
Yep.
battlefield. So they could go up and look at stuff like that. So, that was sort of a prototype for a drone in a way, and it's, this is a long and varied history of this stuff. And of course, there's even records, I don't know if you're aware of this, of the government actually hiring rainmakers years ago. You remember the original rainmakers that went around and all that? They were interested in that.
Yep.
And of course, we know cloud seeding goes on to this day and all that. And here's the weird thing about it, Gerald. I don't see what you think about it, but look at the storms that we've had recently. Just one, that hurricane right now blowing offshore was, I think, just recently a Category 5. They seem to be stronger and different than they used to be in many aspects. And I believe that's another telltale sign that they've been tampered with. Don't you think so?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we can get right into it if you want. I got a couple pictures and slides of stuff like that.
Yeah. And, I think a lot of these, the jet stream that runs a lot of this stuff has been tampered with too. I think a lot. And they were talking about, I was watching a show the other day, they were talking about that it may be an unusually bad year for the polar vortex this year. All these things are real off kilter, and they're not acting not the way that they should. There's Project Storm Cherry. Huh? Tell us about that, Joe.
Yeah, so that's another government project or agency that took the seed clouding and experimenting with hurricanes, and if you know anything about I think the other one is Project Sirius, like as in the cloud.
That's
And they dumped 180 pounds of dry ice in a hurricane, and they manipulated the hurricane and made it switch paths. And that's the one that hit Savannah, Georgia. If you know all the damage that happened during that time.
And there was, if I'm not mistaken, an earlier program in the 60s or late 70s called Operation Storm King, where they were trying to actually increase the fury, the velocity of storms by dropping dry ice and stuff like that. That was interesting too. So this is nothing new.
Right.
This has been tampering around with this for a long time. And they are actually, since I was talking about Patton earlier, it does actually seem to have its roots in World War II. They were thinking more about this stuff then, considering it more, because they had the way to deliver it with airplanes and stuff more so than they ever had before. And so that was, I think, a lot of that came out of that as well. They were very good at making a lot of secret projects back in World War II. We know about Operation Paperclip and some of these other things, and on up into present times like MK Ultra and all these other things that they've done. None of that surprises me. Operation Popeye, yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
that
I
was
remember
during
that
the Vietnam War.
Mm-hmm.
And they did the same thing. They were seeding the clouds, and they extended the monsoon season over in Vietnam to flood out and to ruin the advancement of the Viet Cong. And they just flooded the what was it, the Ho Chi Minh Trail, where they were going up and down. That was their main way of getting back and forth across the region. Well, they just flooded that area out, and it was known that the government had a play in that.
Well, they were also, delivering napalm, sort of like a firestorm thing. They were, like a part of the weather in a way too, as well. And Monica, by the way, all these hurricanes do have an eye. In the center of the eye of the hurricane, or even some of these big storms, and that goes with even the tornadoes, they have an eye, a clear, peaceable state in the very middle of the storm. And when that eye passes over you, the things will get quiet. They say it's very eerie, in the eye of the storm, everything's quiet and rain stops and all that stuff. you're in almost like a cone of silence in a way. There, you're blocked off from all that, and that's interesting. That I've actually experienced the eye of a storm like that, although it wasn't a hurricane. But I think all storms have a certain amount of an eye to them, don't you, Gerald? I mean, they have sort of that the formation of that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you see on that radar picture, you can see the eye right there.
And yes,
So
dry ice does have chemicals in it. That's how you make dry ice. It is a chemical composition.
yep. So they use silver iodide, or I think it's what silver iodide,
yeah,
lead iodide, and all kinds of chemicals they put in seed clouding.
Agent Orange was delivered almost like a rain as well to kill foliage and stuff, and also will kill you if you
Right.
got a hold of it because it was very volatile chemical like that. I know a man that actually it ruined his lungs at Agent Orange did. He was a veteran of Vietnam, and he that's what killed him eventually. Years later, after the war, his lungs finally gave out completely. But Agent Orange was rough, bad stuff, very bad.
Yeah. So you experienced that engineering flooding up in your area, and when they manipulated the storm to come up into the south deeper than it ever has before.
Well, think back now, Gerald, and you and I'm not saying we're that old, okay, but we go back a ways here. Anyway, we never heard anything about for all our lives, nothing about supercell storms until just
No.
recently. You know? Yeah, supercells were never heard of or talked about that much. You know what I mean? A storm was a storm back in the old days, folks. But now you've got Sirocco's, you got different types of storms to talk about, the downdrafts, and the list goes on and on. Weather is getting very, very weird in many aspects, no matter which way you look at it. And it doesn't take a genius to understand 2 + 2 = 4, okay? And this is definitely showing you absolute signs of tampering going on with this, a manipulation.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that storm that you experienced, it knocked out your guys' power, and you guys had flooding. I mean, just look at the devastation. It was all over the news about how all the flooding was wiping out. What was it, Chimney?
I never would have dreamed in my lifetime of ever seeing a hurricane empty itself out over the mountains, but I saw that happen too. That's weird in itself. They should never have got to that point. Now, I know a tropical storm might possibly make it, but this was the remnants of a hurricane. This was more than just a tropical storm.
Right.
That had to be a very powerful, like I'm saying, they're not acting like they normally naturally would. These things are not. So that is a definite sign to me that something's going on with it, you know. And here's something I want to throw at you. I don't know if you heard about this, Gerald, or not, but you know, you hear about this. Now listen to this, folks, okay? Heard it just today that they have found out that this past year, Antarctica added like 100 million more tons of ice than it should have lost that ice, but it has added that ice. And they can't understand why. They said it should be losing ice. It should be melting. It should be, you know, the supposed, and I put parentheses around that, you know, supposed warm up going on with the world. It's not showing signs of doing that. Where did this ice come from? And they say it was snowing in the Antarctic more than usual is the reason for a lot of this. But that would not explain 100 million tons of ice. They just come out of there, and that's really weird too. So they do, as much as they brag on knowing about the weather and climate and all that stuff, they know very little, Gerald. Actually, they really do. You know,
it's a good thing. Otherwise, we'd be in real trouble if they knew everything about the weather.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But I think, you know, they're trying to make a science out of it. But they're not doing as good as they think they are, I think, a lot of the times. But here's the thing about it, okay? And here's my point, and so I want to see what you think about it. But if you go out of the bounds to mess around with something like the weather, and this is way beyond your control in many aspects, you're sort of like poking a sleeping dragon. You know what I mean? Anything could happen, and it might not be good when it does. Definitely, because all the climate craters have oceanfront properties. They probably do. Some of them do. They will have some in the future. Absolutely. Let's see. Looks like an aurora borealis there.
It is, and it happens to be right over top of a HARP antenna array.
Mm-hmm.
So we all know.
That looks a lot. Gerald, correct me if I'm wrong. It looks a lot like Sam Elmo's fire too, doesn't it? The way the properties.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But this is in Alaska. This is the HARP antenna array, or one of them that's around the world, and we know that affects weather, and they send out those waves through the air, and it affects.
Are you familiar with Ken Gerhard?
Yeah,
a good friend of mine. He actually, he had a TV show, and they actually were going to walk up to the HARP installation up there. And the closer they got to it, he started getting sick. I mean, got very, very ill, and he had to leave. And that's the way they say it will affect some people. Some people are more sensitive to these arrays than others. And he had to leave. He couldn't even go up to the installation, and it affected him that badly. I remember him talking about that, and I think it was on his show too. I think they showed what happened with that. And you know what? If that will affect you just getting close to the antenna array that they're using, what else would it do to you?
Absolutely. I mean, those antennas, and even the new towers are putting up with the microwaves and 6G and stuff like that. That's putting out a frequency that supposedly interacts with the nanoparticles that they're putting in our air. So you'll see stuff like this in the sky. You'll see the waves. Sometimes you'll see like a half arc, a circle in them. So at the bottom, you see where the frequency's off, where we have the normal clouds like we used to when we grew up with kids, seeing normal clouds in the sky. But today we see the top part, the weather modification.
Well, Carl says that where I fish, they said that would have been underwater 20 years ago and it's still okay. I'll tell you why that is, Carl, because a lot of this climate control and all this is nothing but political weapons that they use to get things that they want done. Just like these 10-minute cities that Gerald and I have talked about before, things that happen in Maui and places like that. The weather can be not only weaponized, but used as political manipulation as well in those factors. So that's a big thing about it too. And we do know there are certain areas of the governments of the world that are not only interested in weaponization, but manipulation of things, because they are secret shadow governments unto themselves, and they want to maintain that. They will use whatever weapon it takes to sway the public one way or the other. So they're using us, Gerald, like puppets on a string in that respect.
Yep, absolutely.
Yep.
I mean, I always see the pictures of Plymouth Rock, where they have the original rock right there at the shoreline, and it hasn't been flooded or submerged in all this time. It's still visible.
And you know what, Gerald, this is, I mean, why don't people really open their eyes and see what's going on here, because that's what they're doing. They've got you so ingrained thinking, now you're thinking about, this climate, the world's going to heat up, the Antarctic and all this is going to melt, and we're going to have, cities now that, will be shoreline cities in the future, and all this stuff is a bunch of bull, because it is just used to manipulate public consciousness on this kind of stuff, folks, to get you to do what they want you to do, to get you to believe what they want you to believe, no matter how untrue it may possibly be. That's just the way the government, these shadow governments work. That's, par for their course. Yeah.
Yeah, because we had the ice age come in, then we had acid rain, and all that stuff is just for them to shell money into it, because they know if they scare us, the public, into thinking that, okay, this is bad, acid rain, greenhouse effect, you name it. They come up with it. Then all of a sudden they're allowed to shovel all this money through Congress into these projects. It's just a shell game. Let's move money from one place to another. As long as the public's behind them and in fear, then we don't really question it too much.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's kind of obvious sometimes when you look at it, don't look at it through their filter. Look at it without a filter. You see what's going on. And here's another thing, though, we got to consider, too, as well. These shadow governments are definitely not trying to not just sway social consciousness, but also they're manipulating the laws of our countries. At one time, a lot of the industrial stuff, Gerald, they were getting away with this pollution. That's what caused a lot of acid rain. You could go up the mountains and see these dead trees. Up at the top of the mountains, the higher up you went, the worse it was. But this was acid rain caused by the pollution of a lot of these industries. Thank goodness some of that is now known. But look, you have them dumping chemicals and stuff. That's what I was showing you the other day, when I was investigating the lizard man of Bishopville. And I had actually one of the government officials down there say, hey, back in the past, they dumped all kinds of chemicals back out there in that swamp. God only knows what's out there, and, but they got away with that stuff, see?
Right.
And that's what caused a lot of this as well, especially like acid rain and all that. And here's another thing. We used to talk about this too, Gerald, and you and I have talked about this recently. Even the rain doesn't look right anymore.
No.
The rain's it's oily looking. Take a look at it close next time it rains, folks. It's oily looking rain. It don't act like rain, used to do. It's weird, but there's a reason for that. Absolutely. Nobody wants to think about it, but
yeah. Plus places like Texas and I think Florida all got blue rain. Everywhere it puddled up on the ground or in containers that was left outside, it had a blue tint to the rain that was left inside these containers. So that's kind of strange. What are they putting in the air and up in the clouds that when it rains, it'll bring down blue liquid?
And it is a well-known fact, Gerald. You do not eat the first snowfall. You don't eat snow on the first snowfall. Supposedly, who knows what's in it? And you know what? And just like I said earlier, I believe they've been screwing around with this stuff and it's gotten out of hand with them to a certain point. Because like I say, they're dealing with stuff out of their control. But yet that never stops them. Okay. They never stop on that account. But what if they have gone too far and they've really, you can push nature, Gerald, only so far. You can push it only so far and bad things will begin to happen. I think that's what's going on with the animals in the animal kingdom. And we've even talked about this recently. I think Jessica had it on her show a little bit today. I didn't get to see her show today. I was doing one of my own. But the interesting thing is, I think without a doubt, the government manipulation is doing something with the animal kingdom itself, because even dogs and stuff, cats are beginning to evolve in different ways than they never had before. Think of all these many years we've had dogs and cats, okay? And all of a sudden they're beginning to change. And I think there's a reason for that. It's not just something I think is occurring naturally in nature here. There's something else behind this. Gerald, what do you think?
Absolutely. I mean, I can see it happening, especially if you buy commercial dog food over the stores. We don't know what they're putting inside of our dog food. And what if these frequencies are affecting animals now because of what they're eating, what we're feeding them, and we think it's safe for them, but maybe it's not.
Oh, yeah. Hey, matter of fact, speaking of the Krypton Hunters, she has just entered our chat room. Hello, dear. Good to have you here, Krypton Hunters. And yeah, when animals start acting weird like that, and we're getting zombie animal reports here, folks, okay, that bothers me, because this is, the very fabric of our existence that you're talking about here. This can affect us in many different ways, bad ways. And I think it was, I told you about this, Gerald, the paranormal chick who has that thing, I think, on Instagram a lot. She showed us a pigeon today that was not acting like a pigeon, folks, in New York. We know what pigeons are. This pigeon was weird. I mean, it was doing weird. It was almost like it was being controlled by something, almost like a
Wow.
zombie, like out of a zombie movie. And she said this is not the first one that they've actually had filmed like this. And by the way, it was one of the biggest pigeons I've ever seen in my life. He was a big pigeon. And
Wow.
yeah, and what's going on here, folks? They're sneaking something on the wire on us, definitely.
Yeah, like I said, who knows what's happening? I mean, if whatever's in the weather coming down, the rain's affecting us, it has to be affecting the animals also.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, that would definitely be contamination, not just manipulation, contamination of the chemicals that they're using and all these other stuff. The byproducts do not disappear. They remain in the soil and the trees and everything else. I mean, it's not going away. Just to illustrate a point, there was a chemical plant not too far from where I live. It was a fertilizer plant where they actually, made fertilizer, and it caught on fire one night. We almost had to evacuate this place. It was a chemical fog over the land. And
Wow.
later on, girl, they had to plant a whole grove of trees on that property to cleanse the soil.
Right.
Every one of those trees, they got big and it died. They died, girl. I mean, completely dead. And that shows you they were drawing poison out of the soil itself to clean it.
Yep.
What happens when you don't do that? That stuff stays there. And and like I was talking about with Lizard Man thing, who knows what the prospects of something like that is going to be in the future? You got zombie squirrels. You got cannibal squirrels here, folks, doing weird stuff. I mean, come on. That's not good.
I don't know. It's nuts. I mean, you think about it. I mean, here's a picture of our backyard that we took this year or last year. I can't remember. I think it was earlier this year. So they're definitely chemtrailing. I mean, a beautiful, beautiful sky, and all of a sudden there's an X in the sky that doesn't go away.
I took one just like that, Joe, off of my front porch a few years ago. They do those X's on purpose, by the way.
Yeah, they found me.
Mm-hmm. And here's the weird thing.
It's amazing.
I'm not getting political now, folks, okay? But the last time Trump came into power, or however you want to say that, it stopped for a while. Do you notice that, Gerald?
Yep.
It did. It stopped. Now, I think it's kind of started back up a little bit, but it's not like it was. What's going on with that? So that tells you there's some definitely shadow work, government work going on here,
Well, they also have private industries working for the government. And we know from the last Texas flood that this weather modification company finally admitted that they did seed the clouds and conducted experiments before that deadly flood.
That's volatile looking stuff. It almost look like missiles, don't they?
Yep. They shoot off frequencies and chemicals.
And I'm not going to get off the course of the subject here tonight, but I have found evidence, folks, that deep embedded in the industrial military complex of our country, there is a satanic group of people operating. That's scary by itself, okay? To think about that is, they talked about, you might remember a few years back when Biden was in power, of course, that they talked about, some of this sleeper units inside the government. They were talking about some of these radicals. Well, you know what? Radicals, they miss the real radicals. The real true radicals in the army and all that stuff are Luciferians. Okay, but I found out evidence for that. We'll have to do a show on that sometime. But anyway, it is wild to think about that these people who are supposed to be our protectors our front line of defense may actually be our worst enemies. Absolutely. And that right there, that picture you showed out there, it's the stuff that they definitely would have a hand in, you know?
Right. So
Absolutely.
it seems like they're getting more sophisticated now with their weather modification, because it's a known fact that on radar, this big thick line of red showed up on radar right when the storm was getting to its worst, and it's speculated that they're using lasers now, so that they'll put chemicals in the clouds. They'll seed the clouds with nanobots or nano material, and these lasers can excite them, and they learn that they can steer them and manipulate them by using laser beams.
Well, Gerald, I know you're interested in astronomy like I am. And we've always heard for so many years that Mars has no atmosphere to it. I mean, if you were living on Mars, you'd be like on a mountain higher than the Everglades. I mean, the Mount Everest. And yet, I have seen dust devils form on the surface of Mars. Where did that come from? Okay,
Right.
That's weird. They don't know everything, folks. Okay, that's the arrogance of this, Gerald. That's what really bugs me. The arrogance of this. They think they know everything and they can do whatever they want to. But I think maybe God has different plans for them. What do you think? They're not as smart as they think they are,
Absolutely. I mean, it's just getting out of control, I think.
Mm-hmm. Well, everything man does that happens. That they're good at creating the Frankenstein's monster. Okay, that's just the way they operate, no matter what they do, and they're going to be doing that with AI, folks. Okay, I mean, I was telling somebody that on a show not long ago, Gerald. No matter how good their intentions may be with AI and quantum computers and all this, it's not going to go that way. I know how mankind operates. And it's not going to go that way, because some flunkies in the shadow government we're talking about tonight, they're going to say, oh, okay, but wait a minute, we can weaponize it. We can do this bad stuff we want to it. That's the way they're always going with this. So the good intentions get canceled out in the end, folks. That's just the way it goes, And that's what worries me, because of whose hands it's in. That's why I told somebody the other day, AI doesn't bother me. AI is just a computer complex thing, okay? It's the mind behind it that's developing this. That's what worries me, okay? Because it's human. That's the way it goes. And we're very imperfect when we come to, no matter, here's the thing, okay? And, we've talked about this on other shows, Gerald. Perfection does not create imperfection, and imperfection does not create perfection, okay? And we being imperfect are never going to make anything perfect. It's going to have some kind of a side effect to it. I don't care what it is.
Right.
Because that's just our makeup. That's just the way we go. But be very careful when the side effects become much more dangerous than the subject itself. That's when you got a problem,
Yep, absolutely.
Overbill says that AI predicts 2025 Bible prophecy, the final 7 years, Nimrod resurrected, Nephilim army is coming. It would not surprise me, okay? But does AI really know it, or do they want you to think that? You see, you got to understand something about AI, Gerald. Gerald and I talked about this before. AI has already been manipulated. It has already been compromised. Definitely it has. Okay. You can't trust it anymore. You can't trust it no more. Do you trust your government? That's what I think. Somebody Jessica said that on her show the other day. The worst thing you ever want to hear is, hello, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. That's not good. Your government is not your friend in any way, true fashion. It's not your friend, That's the way it goes.
Yeah, they only benefit us.
Philip says that the storms popping up with so much more strength. Yeah, that's what's going on. You didn't have them before, right, Drew?
Right. Yeah, it seems that the government only benefits us when it also benefits them even more.
No.
So we're just
Oh,
we're
yeah.
just the end result where we're lucky enough that it actually works out for us once in a while, because it's usually the programs and everything is yeah.
If it helps us any, it's an accident, folks. Definitely, it wasn't meant to be that way. But they have developed, and I'm not going to get into that tonight. That's a subject for another time too. But they have developed. I want you to listen to this. What I'm about to tell you. They have a quantum computer now. The government just admitted that they have a quantum computer that can outthink in one moment's time, outthink 8 billion people. Think about that a minute, folks. In a moment of time, this thing can outthink, computate things faster than 8 billion people can. That's wild. Think about that. And that is the guts, the brainchild of AI right there. And AI then will become AGI, general intelligence. Okay? And when that happens, it will realize that it is a different entity, that it does exist, and then it probably doesn't need us anymore. And it doesn't.
Yeah.
That's going to be a bad situation. That's when it goes online. That's when it goes online and says, hey, I'm better than you are. I'm smarter than you are. I know more than you do. I don't need you. It sounds like it. Hey, mothers and fathers know what that sounds like when the kids say that to them. I don't need your advice. Okay, I'm smart enough. I know it myself. I'm smarter than you are. That's what they think. We're all guilty of that at one time or another in our lives. Unfortunately, we think we're smarter, no more than our parents did. But that is the problem. Okay, that is the problem with these things. They're creating monsters. Absolutely.
Yep.
And that's what I told somebody on the show not long ago, talking about cryptids. Sure, there are things out there like that. But yet, here's the bad part. We're in the business of creating a lot of them. That's the problem. That's not good. And I think a lot of these things, and I'm going to get into that tonight, but I think a lot of this stuff, especially including the demonic and a lot of other things, are coming out of other dimensions, folks. Definitely, without doubt. I have actually seen that with my own eyes. Spiritual dimensions open into physical dimensions, and vice versa sometimes. That's going on a lot. So who knows what they're getting out of these dimensions? If they're opening doorways, who knows what they're letting in? And they don't even know probably what they're letting in. That's the problem.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
You look at it that way, and that's the same thing they're doing with weather manipulation. They don't know what they're really doing. They may say, "Oh, we do this, we do that, we do this. We got studies on it. We got the quantum computer makeup on all that stuff," but they still do not know what they really are doing. Don't let them lie to you and fool you into that. Just like Gerald, we talked about that before. How much hidden history? How much history has been hid from us? How much the truth has been kept from us? That's why you and I have the shows we have. We're trying to pull that truth out into the light for people to see that that's what's really going on. That is the worst thing. The worst thing, Gerald, that I could do to you. I could come up and slap you in the face and punch you and push you on the ground and do some bad stuff to you. But I feel like the worst thing I can do to you is to lie and deceive you. That even hurts worse than physical pain. Right. That is the ultimate insult to you. That is the ultimate disrespect you can show anybody, is to hide stuff from them like that. That's not good. And no matter any time they cover the truth like that, they're doing it for all the wrong reasons. It's never for good,
Absolutely. Yeah, they're never on our side. So it's always to control and manipulate us.
Oh yeah. But unfortunately, that's the way they go. And there are folks, as I say this tonight, Gerald knows it. There are government institutions that are set to do only just that. to do these things and to keep them from you, to hide the truth of what's really going on in this world. That's not good. They're not the good guys when you do that. They're the bad guys. No matter which way you look at it, they're the bad guys. They're not good. And I call them. I say they belong to the Bad Guy Institute. Okay, they definitely are members. Whenever you do that to people and you hide stuff from them, you're not doing it for good. A lot of people say they try to justify that, Gerald. Say, "Oh, well, I just don't want you to get hurt. Or I don't want you to, things to come out bad." Don't believe that stuff, folks. It's manipulation. That's all it is, pure and simple. And they're doing it to benefit themselves, not you. There's no thought of your benefit in it at all. You're being used. You're being used and abused. It's like that song. Some people want to use you. Some people want to abuse you, and they want to do both. Definitely. Yeah, Overbuilt. Do send me that magnet, my friend, when you get a chance. Okay, absolutely. I might have some fun with it. I'll tell you what, I've always been fascinated by magnets since I was a kid. I've always loved it. It looks like magic in your hands in a way. It's kind of wild. You can do some really freaky stuff with magnets. Absolutely. But yeah, I don't know, girl. What really bugs me about all this is that the arrogance behind it. They just don't care. They don't even really care if they get exposed, I don't think, anymore. Look at The Simpsons, okay? I don't think they really care anymore. The truth is coming out eventually. I don't think, and that's like our friend Solarby, Brian Singh, he's all about disclosure, but I'm afraid it's an uphill battle away. It'll be a very high hill battle that you're waging there for full disclosure. That ain't going to come. They're not going to do it. If it ever comes out, it'll be one of two things. It'll be well, actually, it would be an act of God, probably, if it ever comes out. But also, it will be definitely either accidental kind of a thing, disclosure. It's not going to be complicit on their part with it. Absolutely not. It's going to be that. It's going to be accidental or something. But it's going to be something beyond their control if it does come out. But I don't think we'll ever get full disclosure, not right now anyway. But not for many, 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 many years probably, if it ever comes. And will it be full? Because you know what, when you start dealing with secrets and secret operations and all this kind of junk that they're so good at, it becomes almost like a narcotic, I think, for them. They get a high off of it. They get something like, far beyond that out of it. They enjoy it, and it's part of their power. That's what it is. And that's why they're not going to let go of it. They're going to guard it. They're going to guard it well. Yeah, absolutely.
Sure. I think it turns into a sickness where they can't help themselves. They just got to keep going. So it's almost like they're getting an adrenaline rush because of the actions they're doing.
Mm-hmm. And I think it was George Washington said that the power of the secret is its secrecy. It has to remain secret. That's where the power is in it. And makes sense when you think about that. And they're not going to turn that power loose. They're too much about power and control, and I don't do that, And matter of fact, that show I did today about vampires, that was the one thing I was telling them on that what drives the vampire, that power and control over things, and that's what drives dark magic, folks. Power, manipulation, and control of reality around you. And that's what they're doing to us. They're manipulating our reality. And that's never good. What if I come up to you today, Gerald, and pee on your leg and tell you it's raining? That's what they're doing to us, folks. That's what they're doing. Absolutely. Well, I hope, you know what, Gerald? There's one good hope for mankind. I hope we're smarter than that. That we don't believe what we're told, everything. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I was telling somebody this the other day. We should question these things. Absolutely. We need to ask questions and we need to have an open mind, but we don't want our brain to fall out. Okay. Let's not have it too open here. Okay. Because you can go too far with anything. Moderation and everything is a secret, definitely. But you need to ask questions. You need to say, show me the evidence or let me find the evidence myself. Don't take their word for it because their track record ain't that good, right?
Right. Absolutely. And it always, eventually it comes out. We hear little inklings and little facts come out, and it's always too late. It's already been 20 years, 30 years, whatever, then they finally say, well, yeah, we probably had something to do with that. That's the only time they ever tell us anything. They don't really never quite admit to it, but they don't really ever deny it either.
Well, I've told this before, Gerald. You might remember I've said this to you before. Our Creator has given us a promise. He has made us a promise and He fulfills His promises. He doesn't give you empty, lying promises. He fulfills His promises, and He has promised us that all things that now may be secret will one day be revealed. I look forward to that day. Absolutely. A bandit need dating a Sasquatch. Yeah, I'll try now. Dead Bigfoot mad at me. Keep trying to calm down. Don't be dating any Bigfoot, okay? Those Sasquatch gals will just do you wrong there. Absolutely. But anyway, not that I know about that. I wouldn't know anything about it. Okay. But anyway, yeah, it is a sad state that, that we are done this way. It is really sad. I know it's kind of funny in a way too that we can think that we get the wool pulled over our eyes like this, but that's just what we're asking for. When we made governments, we knew this was probably going to be the fallout for some of that. But to me, this weather manipulation is a very personal thing. Because it affects all of us, not just one of us, not somebody in this sector or that sector, but it affects all of us eventually. It will. And that's not good. That's really deceiving people on a grand scale. And really, here's the bad thing about weaponization. Eventually, that weapon turns on you. That weapon is used against you.
Yeah.
That's the bad thing about it. Ask the people in Maui. Ask some other people that actually had some of this stuff happen to them. And there are weapons out there. I've said this before, Gerald, but it stands repeating again. If I do repeat myself, folks, you probably need to hear it twice. Okay. Anyway, I'll say this. Okay. Whenever we engage in these kind of things and do these things, we're going to pay a price for it, no matter which way you look at it. And this is sort of a spiritual law, Gerald. That whenever you do something good or bad, you're going to pay a price for it. You're going to reap the reward of it, whatever it may be. And if it's bad stuff, it's going to be a bad reward. If it's good, hopefully most of the time it's going to be good. But of course, there's that old saying too: no good deed ever goes unpunished. Okay, that's just the way that goes too sometimes. But even though some of these people may be fooled in believing that their intentions are good, they are also being manipulated by things. I think they're being manipulated also by the darkness that's out there. And here's the sad thing about it, Gerald. When you don't know that you're being manipulated,
Right.
when you really don't understand you are being used. And it's just like the psychotic liar. He lies and lies until eventually and sadly, unfortunately, begins to believe his own lies. He's fooled his own self, as Shakespeare said, to thy own self be true. Don't ever fool yourself, but they have fooled a lot of these guys, think they're still the good guys. They think, oh, I'm doing this to help people. I'm doing this for our good. This is a flimsy excuse that mankind always uses to justify the stupid stuff that they do. That's just the way they work. I don't know. It's wild.
It
But
is.
it's so obvious. How can anybody not see that this weather is being manipulated? How can you not see that? That's even worse than that old ostrich, Gerald, with his head stuck in the sand. Whatever you do there, guess what, folks? Your butt's going to stick up. It's a target, okay? That's the way that works. And that's why you got a lot of ostriches with holes in their butts, okay? Because they stick their butt up there and stick their head in the ground. But anyway, that's what's going to happen, And what's coming down the line? Here's what I wonder about, Gerald, and I want to see what you think about it. What's coming down the line? What's going to be the eventual outcome of all this? What do you think?
I don't know. I mean, they're using weather modification obviously to get to an end result. They talk about for like the sun. They're trying to block out the sun so we don't get the greenhouse effect or the horrible rays that's heating up the planet. Well, I mean, if you block out the sun, that's not good for every living thing on the planet. So what's the end result? Population is dying off. I mean, what are they trying to achieve?
Think about this, okay? Think about this and consider this for a moment. Think about snowfalls that may be 20 or 30 feet deep. Think about super storms that go on not just for hours, but days, and maybe even weeks. Think about super category hurricanes that may bust the 5 record and go on up to 7 or 8. These are the things that could be very real stuff in our future, just like those 100-pound hailstones I mentioned earlier in the program. Where's the end to all this and what can happen with it? Whenever you begin to do stuff like this, you may be looking at this kind of future stuff, folks. Think about a storm that will not die naturally. They may go on for days. Would you want to live through something like that? Or could you live through something like that? Dumping tons of water on you, flooding your roads and your houses out. Even the rooftop wouldn't be high enough to save you. I mean, come on. This is and tsunamis that arise from some of these things and earthquakes. Whenever you have too much water on the land, they were talking about this. They're filling a. I don't know if you heard about this, girl. They're filling a big dam reservoir in China, and they say that it is so big and it is unbalanced there so much it will actually lengthen our day a little bit. It's going to make the Earth wobble, folks. Can you believe that?
Huh.
We can do that to this planet we're on. We can do worse than that, folks. A whole lot worse. It can be something like out of some kind of Hollywood disaster movie or something, Yeah, this stuff can be real because that's what happens when you start playing God.
Yep.
And Gerald, there's one thing we got to remember here. We were never created to be gods. Never. But boy, we sure do like the role of playing them, don't we?
People sure do like to try to be our gods.
But that's what goes on, here, and you can take this, something as broad as this, weather manipulation, all that. And like I said earlier, it affects everybody eventually. I mean, it's not going to be localized. It affects you worldwide. What happens? Do you know what happens in Sahara Desert affects us over here in this country? We even get the dust from it. You're living on a small planet, folks. Not as big as you think it is. Okay, and it's becoming smaller and smaller every day. And too much water, too much rainfall can mess around with the tectonic plates under the ground and cause earthquakes, cause the revitalization of volcanoes. The list goes on and on. The weather affects much more than just what comes out of the sky and storms and all that. It can affect the earth itself in many, many different ways. We got to understand that too. And like I said, when and Gerald, I think you mentioned this one time, it's like a balance. All of this is balanced, right? I think when our creator made all this stuff, he put it in a celestial balance. It's just like gears in a clock. If you remove one gear, you screw up the whole clock. It don't work no more. And that's what we're doing. We're messing around with those gears, folks. And we better watch out. We better watch out.
Absolutely.
Forever storm would go on. That would be something I would not want to see. It would be something horrific. Even if you didn't die in a flood of it, or you didn't even drop rain on you, think about living through something like that. A storm that does not seem to ever end. And I've seen lightning storms like that. I know you have too, Joe. Where it's just continuous lightning, ground to ground, ground to sky, lightning and all that. It does. You wonder, hey, when's this going to be over? Because it seems like it goes on forever. And that's just a little baby storm, folks, compared to what we may be looking at in the future. And that's what may be in our future. These super storm cells and these super downdrafts and all that. You don't even need a tornado anymore with the super downdrafts. They can wipe your house out. That'd be it, Boom.
That's right.
Yeah.
All these new terms that they keep coming up with, like cyclone bomb and all these torrential rains things. I think every time they come up with a new term, I think there's some kind of weather modification behind it. Because otherwise they wouldn't have a new term. It'd just be the same old storms that we're used to.
Kind of reminds me of what Mark Twain used to say about the weather. And he said, everybody talks about it, but nobody does anything about it. And I don't think he could say that anymore because somebody's doing something about some of this
Somebody's
stuff.
doing something.
Yeah. It's not good. It's not going to be good. And just like I say, that's what worries me about it. I don't know who's behind it and what the outcome usually is on that kind of stuff. But I'm not trying to say things to be fearful. Gerald's not either. We're not trying to scare you folks. We're just trying to lay out the facts as what they are, and the conclusions that we have to come to them. But they may not be good. They may not be what we want to see, but they're there. You have to face it and understand this may be the future, if they don't quit messing around with stuff.
Well, even growing up, I remember my dad and them talking about Tornado Alley was always in a certain area through the states. Oh, yeah. And I just saw something the other day where they said we have a new Tornado Alley. So evidently it's changed. It's been the same way forever, as far as I know. Now all of a sudden it's changing. So why is it changing?
Well, we used to have a saying down here in the South, Gerald. That a tornado and a redneck are very much alike because they will both end up in the trailer park after dark. So there are certain places that seem to be just magnets for this kind of stuff. I used to live in a town like that. The town I live in now is sort of what's on the Tornado Alley kind of thing, because it's very near a large lake, a man-made lake, by the way, folks. It's not a nature-made lake, but a man-made lake. And here's the weird thing I've noticed just in my own locale, Gerald, that storms coming over this lake are worse than those that come around it. It's drawing, water is energy to a certain extent. And what you said something earlier, and I think that's very interesting, that, a lot of this manipulation stuff being done with vibration and frequency. We do know they can do that with it, and definitely when storms go over water or hit mountains, they act differently. Yeah.
Right.
And just like hurricanes over warm waters in the ocean, that increases their strength, and I think a lot of that's going on, and they know that as well. They use those factors as well in a lot of this stuff, but I have noticed that usually where I live, if that storm starts coming over that lake, you can look like it's going to be usually a doozy, definitely, because it picks up steam, picks up a lot of water anyway. Coming over there, yeah. But we do know, I was sent somebody the other night about that old saying. I know you've heard that, red sky at night, sailor's delight, red sky at morning, sailor's morning. There are certain things, and they mentioned in the Bible too, certain weather signs, we kind of can know a little bit more because we're more in tune with our environment, especially the older folks were more so than the people don't take their head off a phone anymore to see anything else. But anyway, they used to know a lot of stuff about weather and some of the things it would do. Like, there was one where if birds fly low during the day, then it's low pressure, there's a storm coming. Certain signs you could see, and they are true. I mean, they do make sense when you think about it in a meteorological sort of way. They
Right.
definitely do. Yeah, I like meteorology. It's always been fascinating to me, along with astronomy and all that stuff. It's tied in together in many ways, but it's fascinating stuff. So we do know a lot about the weather, but we don't know enough. We don't know enough about, a lot of stuff. I won't go into it anyway. Uh, there are certain signs that you will tell you maybe certain things will happen. Uh, so I'm not coming down on that. That's very important that we kind of know. This kind of information will save lives sometimes.
Right.
And that's why we do need to be on top of meteorology because we need to know these things to be able to warn people in time. Hey, you need to hunker down or get out or whatever you need to do. Something's coming your way. Definitely. I would want to be warned. Yeah, definitely. And you might find me under the kitchen table or something. But uh, yeah, that's a good thing about that. And that is the one thing. I have some friends who are storm chasers. And but some of them are just do it for the thrill of it. But some of them are actually there to help people get information. And actually, they're the good guys in my book. They're doing it for a good reason, for all the right reasons, not just the momentary thrill of it. Uh, but that's good. That's very vital that we can do these things, and keep an eye on stuff like that because it will save lives. And you're not going to do a whole lot about the property. The property is you can build a house again, but you can't, bring it back from the dead. So it's good that we, can warn people about that. So yeah, that's a good part of all that. So I'm not getting down on all of it, but I think there is some definite weather manipulation going on. I mean, it's hard to overlook that, Gerald.
Yep. Absolutely.
But anyway, I don't know. But yeah, they have earthquake weapons. They got all kinds of stuff. And what I've said before, don't ever forget this. And I'll repeat myself again on this. I'm sure. But whatever technology we have in our hands right now, they have, and I'm talking about the government, have the technology 1 to 200 years in advance of what we have in our hands right now. I know that without a doubt. Who knows what? God only knows what they got. Okay, they can see through the walls of your house. You have no privacy left. And I mentioned this to Jessica the other day. Don't worry about your privacy. You have no privacy left. It's gone. Forget about it. I can get on. You're on right now. I can get on the dark web and find out probably what color shorts you're wearing tonight. Okay.
Oh,
I mean, I can find out whatever I want to find out, and so you have no privacy. You are open book, and that's exactly what they want you to be. An open book.
yep.
Yeah. And our whole lives are that way, not just the information about us. Our whole lives are open to them to play that little weird chess game they're playing with us. Absolutely. Yeah, they have the Thompson got rods, and they have the energy weapons. They have a lot of stuff that will blow your mind. Just like those smart bullets I was talking about earlier. Can you imagine shooting a bullet at somebody's girl that will track you down and kill you around corners, behind stuff? That's not
Wow.
good. That's
No.
not good at all. Uh, it's kind of like the werewolves I talked about. Once they get your scent, they never stop. It's like a hound, a
Wow.
bloodhound. It's not going to stop. Well, this bullet ain't going to stop until it finds you because it's programmed to what? Kill you. Point blank. That's it. And that's what kind of technology you're dealing with here. That's what kind of guys you're playing this game with. Okay. So don't ever, ever, ever underestimate these guys because they are really slick, real slick. Yeah, they feather clouds. I've heard about it. They got different looking clouds now, Gerald. They got all kind of weird looking cloud formations and stuff now. They don't even have names for some of them. And here's what gets me. Here's the big lie that they tell. Oh yeah, that's a known cloud formation. We know all about it and all that, but they never come out with a name for it because they don't have a name for it. Okay, but they say, oh yeah, we know all about that. That's normal. That's natural, and it's a bunch of bull, folks. It's not natural. It's not normal, but they want you to believe that. They're lying to you. And here's the bad thing about it, Gerald. Once they start lying, they don't ever want to stop.
Yep. Even when they're caught in a lie, they double down and just keep telling it anyway.
No, they won't do it. Well, that's part. I had a lawyer told me once years ago. He said, no matter what you do in this life, don't ever confess to it. Because then the game's over. Okay, that's why you'll be in prison. But if you say, "Oh no, I was framed," it's not me. I didn't do it. And that's what most of the time, everybody you meet in prison, they're not there because they did anything. They'll always say, "Oh no, I got framed, or it wasn't me. Somebody else did. I'm not supposed to be here." And that's the way they live in prison, folks. There's someone who's definitely supposed to be there, but they're not going to ever confess to that. That would not be smart, would you? And that's the way criminals are on that kind of thing. Because I've seen that happen in law enforcement. We could catch people walking out of the store with shoplifted items, and they say, "Oh, how did that get there? I don't know anything about that." We stood there one day. I'll never forget this. We stood there looking through the window, watching this guy shoplift. Okay. And when we get in to get him, he said, "I don't know how that got there, I don't know where that come from." I said, "We stood out there and watched you do it." We stood out there and see you. He never would confess to it, But anyway, that's the way it goes. They're not going to own up to it, folks. They're not ever going to tell you the truth. Once you begin to lie, it's like, well, who said that? Was that Walter Scott? Oh, what a tangled web we weave once we practice to deceive. You get caught up in your own web eventually. Just like a spider if it's not careful. A spider, if you ever watch this, Gerald, and I love to look at nature and stuff like that, you watch a spider on a web, it knows exactly where to step. It knows exactly how to manipulate that web. If it didn't, it would get what? Caught in its own web. Because that web is just as sticky to the spider as it is to you, okay? But he knows how to work it. You don't.
Right.
That's the way it works. And that's the way it goes to people that lie, folks. They know how to do it. They wouldn't, they wouldn't lie. So you're right, Gerald. They're experts at it, definitely. Smart weapons are scary, Alexander. Absolutely. Because they're so darn smart. That's what makes them dangerous. That's what I said about vampires, and stuff like that. They are too much like us. That's the problem. That's what makes them so downright dangerous. Absolutely. And when you start dealing with smart bullets and energy weapons and all that kind of junk like that, it does tend to be smarter than you sometimes, it's got you at a disadvantage. That's why, another man told me once many years ago, Gerald, you always want to live life at an advantage. You don't ever want to be disadvantaged. You want it to be on your side. You want the advantage. And that makes perfect sense when you think about that, folks. And when it comes to people lying to you and manipulating you and using you, you want to work that to your advantage and not let them get it over you. That's the way you want to work it, and you want to be smarter. You need to be one step ahead of them. That's what I told somebody the other day. That's what makes God a God. He's probably always 100 steps ahead of everything on that, okay? That's what makes him that way. And that's where we need to be sometimes. We need to be a little bit more ahead of our game here. So when we see things like weather manipulation, we need to go, oh, yeah, you're not fooling me with it. You're not fooling me. I don't believe it. And that takes a little bit of their power away from them. Maybe not a whole lot, maybe not enough, but it does take a little bit, and it still gives you a little bit of an advantage. And that's where you want to stand with that, right, Gerald?
Yep, absolutely. You always want to be in the advantage if you can. I mean, sometimes it's not always possible, but if you have a slight edge, you're better off.
Absolutely. Never fight uphill. Fight downhill. Work better that way with the sun at your back too. Definitely work it that way. Smart soldiers know that, right, Gerald?
Yep. Take the high ground.
Well, this has been very interesting. You got any final thoughts on this weather manipulation, sir?
Yeah, supposedly, I don't know if I think you mentioned it maybe at the beginning of the show. We have another hurricane coming, and supposedly this is going to be traveling further up through the Midwest. So be careful of like we were talking about, flooding and storms staying positioned over one area for a long time. So be lookful. Keep your eyes open.
Well, you know, I'm trying to think. They got another term. I think not Sirocco. It's I cannot think of it. It's Spanish, but I can't think of his name. But it's sort of like a line of storms that go through. You know, and instead of being a broad line, it's sort of like a single file line. It's one storm, boom, 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 after another kind of thing.
Right.
You've heard about that, yeah. And I think that was supposed to be predicted out in the Midwest too. I think it was one like that supposed to come through a line, but they're not a broad line. It's a horizontal line.
Yep.
You know, vertical line. That's very weird. That's a weird weather formation out there. And yeah, and what's so bad about that? You got one storm after another dumping the rain on you, so you have a tendency for flooding and wind damage in this too, because it's like a wind funnel kind of thing, you know?
Right.
That ain't good. That's definitely not good.
Yeah, just like you said, I think the amount of rain in inches is going to increase. I think the wind speeds are going to increase. So just like you said, it's possibly going to go higher than a 5. They're going to have to change your scale.
I think that's what happened in Texas, you know, with that flooding that took so many lives down there, and that it was something similar along those lines that caused so much flooding in that area in that brief period of time. That is when it gets dangerous. So I will tell everybody watching tonight, always, it's very imperative that you keep an eye on your weather. Get your head out of the phone once in a while and look around, okay? And make sure your weather, you know, is something you're paying attention to, because we're not living like we used to. Things are different, folks, and we need to, as my old teacher used to say, now that you have the knowledge, you need to apply it. Okay, you need to understand the weather ain't like it used to be, and you need to take that more in you know, reference to it, because if you don't, you can end up in a bad situation, you know, and you don't want to do that. Like Gerald said, that you don't want to be at that disadvantage, especially when it comes to weather, because weather can sometimes unalive you very quickly if you're in the wrong place in the wrong scenario. Right. Definitely, yeah, especially when it comes to tornadoes and stuff like that. So please pay attention to the weather at all times. Kind of know what you're going to do, and whether you need to take an umbrella out that morning with you or whatever the situation. Please be aware. Be aware. You know, it's so important, Gerald, that we be aware and know some of the stuff that's going on around us in our environment all the time. You know, I was taught that, you know, way back in police academy, you know, observe everything, keep an eye on everything. Don't take anything for granted, because that's what sometimes some things out there are waiting for. That one moment you let your guard down, you know, boom, it's got you right where it wants you. Yeah, I've known people like that. But anyway, we need to understand that is there, because we've got to adjust ourselves, folks, because we are strangers in a strange land. Okay, this place is stranger now than it's ever been before in my lifetime, and it keeps getting that way. It's not stopping. It's only getting worse. So we need to understand that and apply that to all that we do, and know that things just ain't what they used to be, and they probably won't ever be that way again. So that's the end of that, the end of that story. But we need to be aware. We need to be aware. And I'm not just talking socially aware. I'm talking about environmentally aware of everything
Right.
around us. Yeah. So that is very, very important that we do that. So let's work on that. Absolutely. So we won't be found at that disadvantage. Definitely. But that's my final thoughts on it. I think that we need to adjust, and we need to adjust accordingly to what's going on here, because that's just the way it is. We used to do that at work, girl. Well, somebody's going to be out of work today. Well, we just going to have to work around that. That's life, and that's what we got to do with this. We may not can change it. We may never be able to fix it back the way it was, but we can adjust to it. Unfortunately, we have to.
Right.
That's part of being a part of surviving this world. Absolutely. So we need to understand that. But that still doesn't make it good. No, it doesn't good. I very much disagree with that attitude that they're doing this on us, but not a whole lot I can do about it. But we know what the score is, right, Gerald?
Yep.
Know what
Absolutely.
Yep. But anyway, you had a great show last night with the Cryptid Huntress. That was really good. Those blemmies, those guys can, they don't have to worry about vampires biting them in the neck, folks. By the way, they don't have to worry about that. They got no necks, okay? But we were talking about today on that show that I did, girl, and it made me think about your blemmies there. Vampires don't really bite you in the neck. That's Hollywood, They really go for certain areas. I'm not going to get into that, but they go for certain areas because that's where the main arteries are. Okay, folks.
Oh,
And here's what I told that lady on that. I said, well, the vampires know where the main arteries and the pressure points are. Okay, they know. They make it their business. Just like what end of the hamburger to bite. And how to do that. They know what they're doing as well. But we need to understand the knowledge of things like this, absolutely, and use them to our advantage, especially when it comes to vampires. But that was a great show, and if anybody missed it, go back and check it on Midwest Night Watchers. It was good. I enjoyed it. I didn't get to see the whole thing, unfortunately, but what I did see, it was really good. And Jessica and I did a show, back in the past on the blemmies too. It's a fascinating subject. They're weird looking guys. I like that comparison you made to them to the blue meanies.
yeah.
I often thought about that too. The blue meanies from the Yellow Submarine. That's neat. So, have you got any shows planned this week, or what you got coming up here, Gerald?
Oh, we got the Night Owl Lounge, and then Sunday we'll have our Piercing the Veil, and we have another Bigfoot researcher coming on. So we'll be having that on Sunday at 6 p.m. Central.
Sounds good. And of course, you got some movies coming up too, right?
Hopefully we'll be live on our Rumble channel Friday and Saturday night with some movies. I haven't picked them out yet.
All right. Well, we'll be looking forward to that. Watching some of the good old movies there. And don't forget, everybody, Gerald has a store. I'm gonna try to this weekend. I'm gonna try to set my store up, Gerald. So stand by, okay?
All right.
Anyway, tell them about your store there, Gerald.
Yeah, if you go to Midwest Night Watchers at printful.me, we have our store there. You can find shirts like this with our logo, and we have hats and sweatshirts and tank tops, and we have coffee mugs, and you name it, we have it there. And we have also some cryptid shirts with Bigfoot, Mothman, and different things like that. So there's a link in chat right now. So if you would, please go check it out, and we appreciate it.
For all your Badland needs, right there, or the good land too. Yeah, there you go. I sound like the old country merchandise stores.
Might have to put a Blemmy shirt in there or something now that we did a Blemmy show.
I like that, Gerald. Gerald General Store. That would be good. That has a ring to it. Yeah, I like that. That's neat. But anyway, we will have another show Wednesday night on Hunting the Shadows. And Friday night, Paranormal Point of View will be back once again. And also tonight, premiering on my good friend Daniel's Benoit's channel. He has the documentary that I was in, and if you will find the links to that on my YouTube channel if you want to go check it out. They interviewed me for a documentary that he's getting together on cryptid stuff. So I will have a link for that on there, and also did a great show today with Chantel Mayberg and a lady named Beverly Rhodes from the UK. She was actually involved in a vampire cult in her younger days. Great show, and it was a special one today. It came on, and you will find the links for that in my library as well. And check that out. It was fascinating. It was a really very dark, very dark show, but it was very interesting, absolutely. And we talked a lot about the vampire cults themselves, the covens that operate, and we're talking about the real deal, folks, not just human wannabe vampires. These guys are the real thing, and it's fascinating discussion. So check it out if you get a chance. And also, don't forget, I do have some books available on Barnes and Noble and Amazon. Just look up the author, Dennis W. Carroll. I got to put that W in there. It stands for wolf, by the way. There, I tell everybody that anyway. But I had to put that W in there because there's another Dennis Carroll. He's a doctor too, but he's a medical doctor. And then there's another one who plays football, and I don't play football either. I used to, but I don't anymore. But anyway, you check them out that way. Check those books out if you get a chance, and don't forget if you need me or Gerald, we're available. On our websites and on our Gerald. Tell them how they get in touch with you.
Yeah, you can send us an email at midwestnightwatchers@gmail.com or go to our Facebook group under Midwest Night Watchers, and you can always leave comments or posts there. So get a hold of us.
That's good. And you can get in touch with me at DennisWCarroll.com or DennisWCarroll@gmail.com if you need to talk to me or whatever about anything. And we are available on those. Absolutely. Well, appreciate you so much all for being here tonight. We really thank our moderators. You're doing a fantastic job. There's some gal on here named Shiro. She does really good.
I think I know her.
Yeah. You do? You know her? Okay. And anyway, I want to thank all of our mods. They are definitely doing a great job there, and we appreciate that. Absolutely. And because we got some really weird, flaky agents of evil out there, folks. And they attack us every now and once again. I've gotten thrown under the bus just last week, okay? But that's okay. I've been under there before. But anyway, sometimes that bus will run over you and then back up for another round. But that's the way it goes. But anyway, we appreciate the moderators. They do a fantastic job on that, and that helps us do our job better. Absolutely. We appreciate that. We appreciate all of you. Your support is absolutely appreciated, 100%. And we thank you so much for that and for journeying down the road less traveled with us. It's a fascinating place to always go, especially when you can go with good friends like Gerald and all the rest of you out there. It is my honor and privilege to travel that road with you all, and I thank you so much for that. And Gerald, you got any last words here? Sound like you're going to an execution, but go ahead.
Getting ready to walk the last mile, I guess.
Yeah,
that's exactly what you said. We appreciate everybody that shows up in chat so much. Thank you for your participation during the show, and we just love you guys, and we're so happy that you show up to listen to us.
Absolutely. And check out our good friend Jessica Jones, the Cryptid Huntress. She has a shop, War Woman Goods. Please show her some love on that. Brenda Beyond the Box. is great. We also our good friend Barb Hartman, and we also have Heidi Pop. Please check her out as well, and our good friend Kenny Star Fox, Lord Star Fox. I'm sorry, and check his channel out as well. And like I said, we're all here about cooperation and not competition. That's what it's all about. So we're all looking out for each other. We got us a network, right, Drew?
That's
And
right.
and that's what we're doing with that. But we appreciate you all so very much for being here tonight and spending this fascinating. So watch out. Don't forget your umbrella, okay? And take care out there and take care of yourselves. And be wary of the weather. Be weather aware, okay? Absolutely. But we appreciate you so much for being here tonight. Thank you. And we look forward to the next time we'll all get to travel down the road less traveled, okay? And thank you so much for being here. Good night and God bless.
Good night, everybody.